What's up, all my swell friends? Jason Kurtz here with another episode of... I'm not doing 5 Minute Friday anymore. I'm changing the name. 5 Minute Friday just wasn't working. The new name is going to be What and How. What I'm doing and how I'm doing it, or why. That's not totally polished either. I got 2 marketing lessons for you, by the way. Marketing lesson A, don't come to market unless you actually have a name with something. Marketing lesson B, don't put something off too long, just ship it. It kind of contradicts the first one. The whole idea and concept here is I don't really know what I want to call this, but the idea is that I want to share something that I've learned, something that people have asked me with you. And to be quite frank, I don't really know what to call it. I'd like to have some fun, snappy name, but I'm just not that creative, like I've said. So for now, we're going to call it What and How, and maybe why, because I'm going to talk about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Today, we're going to be talking about camping with kids. So, tell us what your favorite thing about camping trips is.
Playing in the mud.
I actually don't know. I like exploring on the camping trip.
I'm trying to think. There's a lot of fun things about camping. One of them is being able to snuggle up in a sleeping bag at night and be a lot warmer than you would in a blanket.
What is your favorite thing about sleeping in a tent?
Snuggling with my dad.
What's your least favorite thing about going on camping trips?
I don't really have one. Not being able to shower. I like showering.
What's your least favorite thing?
Evelyn.
That's not fair. Do you like to explore and walk on trails?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember some of the trails that we walked on last weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Remember all the furry moss?
So it was really fluffy and it felt weird.
You don't want to be on camera?
Not really. There's this one how me and Noah were sliding down that we were sliding down like a little ledge thing.
Mm-hmm.
We got our butts all covered in dirt.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. I like exploring at the trails.
Yeah.
Just going somewhere I've never been before.
It looks like a slide.
Ooh, that looks like a slide, indeed.
We've been sliding on this one most of the time. We wanted to try to end up on at that big tree.
Thanks for watching, and remember, if you find this video useful, hit the like button, share with your friends, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe because that helps support us, and we really, really appreciate it. Camping with kids is challenging, it's difficult. It's one of those things, it's like, I get asked all the time. I have kids, I'm waiting till they get to a certain age, and I think what you're doing is really, really cool, and I'm not brave enough, or I'm scared to take my kids, or I'm worried that they will be unhappy, or that they won't be comfortable, or, I mean, it goes on and on and on. And there's a million reasons why camping with kids is like a pretty viable excuse to procrastinate going out and exploring and doing things. Because let's face it, if you have kids, I mean, kids are great, but if you have kids, like the first thing you think about is going, if they're unhappy and I'm out in the middle of nowhere and they're pitching a fit, or they're uncomfortable, or they're cold, or like what happens if somebody gets hurt? Like, it just goes on and on and on. I mean, you have to be careful, and as a parent, you think about all of these things. You think about their well-being, but you also think about your sanity. And it's not like, I'm not saying my kids drive me crazy, but I mean, let's face it, sometimes our kids do drive us crazy. Because it's stop fighting, stop arguing, stop bickering, stop whatever you're doing. But if you just get out there and you try and you explore and you have experience and you just move forward, you'll love it. You'll love it, and they'll love it, and they'll have memories, and you'll have memories, and it's something that you just can't duplicate. You can't replicate. You can't. There's no other way to get there's no other way to get these experiences. This one's a good one right here. That's not how you skip a rock. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of background. I didn't grow up camping. I always wanted to. I always dreamed of it. But my parents, I'm not firing any shots, Mom and Dad. But my parents, my dad, they just weren't camping people. They just weren't. And it is what it is. But the first camping trip I went on, I was an adult. I picked up a tent at Walmart, did some camping, froze my butt off, had no idea what I was doing. And I learned from that experience. Early on, when our oldest son, Oscar, was a Cub Scout, we went on a couple camping trips with him, figured out some things. When Noah was a Cub Scout, went on some camping trips with him. And he was always good with camping, never really had any issues with him sleeping outdoors or in a tent or anything like that. Hey, don't do that. Please don't do that. See what I mean? So we used to go on these Cub Scout camping trips, and they were like fam camp camping trips. And Noah would go, and he always did fine, and Lily would always beg to go. And one time, since it was like a family camp when everybody could go, I actually took Lily with us one time. I mean, she loved it. I mean, it was like now Lily's always been our daring one, but it was like she was born to be outdoors. I mean, she loved the whole experience. Benjamin, on the other hand, he's always been kind of our sensitive one. Growing up, he was the one, for a while, like he was prone to wake up if he wasn't just right, he'd just be upset. He was a sensitive sleeper. I don't know if you have a sensitive sleeper. Noah's not really a sensitive sleeper, neither is Lily. Ben was. So taking him on a camping trip for the first time, I had to do some testing and some experimenting. Evelyn seemed fine, but with her, we also wanted to do a little bit of experimenting as well to make sure that she'd do good. So that brings us to the little first topic here, sleeping outdoors. When you go from sleeping inside to sleeping outdoors, there's a transition thing there. I mean, it's like, it's different, you know what I mean? Like, Noah and Ben was a sensitive sleeper. The very first camping trip that I took him on, our very first overland trip, Ben didn't go. If you remember back, I took Noah and Lily. And the reason why I took Noah and Lily is because they were both experienced campers. They'd both been on a couple of camping trips, and I knew that they would be okay. And they were great. They did great. Benjamin, when I took Benjamin on his very first camping trip, we stayed close. And the reason why we stayed close, we were only a couple of hours away and there were hotels very close. It was because if we woke up in the middle of the night and he was falling apart because he was cold, he was uncomfortable, like whatever the case might be, I didn't want to be way out in the middle of nowhere. I wanted to kind of try it out, but I also wanted to sort of explore. So there was this compromise. We went to a location semi-close, but it was still out in the woods. He did great. I mean, he did really great. And in fact, every camping trip we've been on, he's always been just great. Evelyn, the first time we took her on a camping trip, it wasn't on a trip. We went local seriously, like down the road, set everything up and did like a trial run, did like a test, and we camped out, and she was amazing. You know, here's the funny thing is, she was asking, like we had gone on several trips, and she's like, when can I go? When can I go? I want to go on a camping trip. And I mean, she like really, really wanted to go. And so we did this local camping trip, and like I said a second ago, she did really, really good. So the point I'm trying to make is that every kid's gonna be different, and you have to you know your kids a little bit, so you have to kind of think about it, and you have to just kind of consider how you think it's gonna play out, and then just experiment with it. You know, go to a local campsite. I mean, you're gonna have campsites close to where you're at, and go there with the mindset that if something doesn't go quite right, you just get back in the car and you go home. The reality is, when you're doing anything with kids, and if you have kids, you know this, you have to do it with like this certain mindset of constant compromise, because sometimes things aren't gonna go exactly the way you think they're gonna go, and you may just have to just change all your plans. The second topic that I kind of wanted to talk about is food. I am not the chef in my house. I don't cook food. I mean, I can. I'm just not that good at it. My wife, she went to culinary school. I mean, she's like a chef. The stuff she makes is like phenomenal and amazing, and everybody's like, holy moly, and me, it's like, what is this? I prefer to keep it simple. The other thing that I learned about camping early on for me is that, and not everybody's like this, some people like to cook these big, fancy, elaborate meals, and I like to eat big fancy elaborate meals, but I do not like to prepare big fancy elaborate meals. When I'm on a camping trip, I try to keep it super simple. The less food prep, the less preparation, the less cooking, the less time, for me the better. So when we were first starting out, Mom helped us. Mom helped us put some things together. The older kids, Noah and Lily, it was simpler because I can ask them what they want. Ben and Evelyn is not as simple. Ben's getting better with being able to tell you what he wants. Evelyn, not so much. You kind of have to figure out what she likes. Kind of a tried and true first meal, and this was like a traditional first meal, even though we haven't done it for a while. It's those little rice side packets, a can of chicken and a can of veg all, or just mixed vegetables. Almost everybody's good with that, except Lily. She doesn't care for it. She doesn't like rice. One of the other trail favorites, and Lily actually, this is one of her favorite things, is trail burgers. I can't cook a burger for squat, but for some reason, when I'm on a camping trip, in my pan skillet thingamajigger in my trailer, like the burgers turn out really, really good. So I don't know, maybe I've got it figured out that way. I have found that the trick with a good sandwich and a good burger is the bread. Season the meat a little bit, don't overcook it, but otherwise with a good bun, it'll go a long way. Another favorite is hot dogs. I'll boil up hot dogs or some Italian sausages. The kids won't eat Italian sausages, but I happen to love them. Another thing that we really like is Frito pie. We'll put Fritos in the bottom, we'll put some chili on top. It's like so unhealthy, it's not even funny. Like you feel like crap after you eat it, but it's really, really yummy. There's a few things that we get for every trip. We get one of those giant bags of chips that have the little small individual snack size chips. I get a huge box of granola bars. I'll get a few packages of veggies with just the dip. I'll buy a package of bottled water because the kids like to drink the bottled water. It's easier to scale that way. It's not environmentally friendly at all. The trick that I have found with kids and camping trips is plenty of snacks. I don't know about your kids, but my kids like eat constantly. And when they're bored, they eat even more. And so I try to get some snacks that are fairly decent. The granola bars are really the only fairly decent snacks that we get. The chips are totally not. Get those little sandwich crackers, those go a long way as well. Oh, one more thing. PB&Js, the Uncrustable PB&Js, perfect. You can buy a box of 10 or 16 of those. We get the grape ones.
Daddy,
What?
look at this. This one's small, this one's big. I should let Mommy have this one because she's not really, really strong. She's only a little.
Put them in the fridge. They sell them in the freezer section at your local grocery store. I take them out. Whenever I'm ready to eat one, I'll throw a few on the dashboard, make them nice and warm, hopefully, if it's warm outside. That's usually one of my lunches. And I'll have 4 or 5 of those things for lunch and snack on them along the trail. One of the things that Noah likes a lot, and I like it as well, are those little tuna packages, the Bumblebee tuna packages you've seen us eat. Those are great. I usually keep about a half a dozen, maybe 10 of them in the trailer at any given moment, because I'll eat 3 of them for lunch, and Noah will eat 3 or 4.
Everyone, don't do that.
And the last section I wanted to talk about was entertainment. This is something I get all the time. Hey, what do your kids do when you're on the trail? Because my kids are bored out of their mind. My kids get bored out of their mind too. And I'll tell you what, if I've got the older kids with us, look, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. We don't like our kids to sit on their screens, all the time, watching stuff and playing video games. At home, electronics time starts at 4:30, generally from 4:30 to 5:30. If we're feeling generous, might let it slide a little bit depending on how things are going. And we really try not to do that every day. I mean, if we can keep our kids active and get them outside and get them doing stuff, I don't want them looking at screens all the time. But sometimes when we're traveling, if we're traveling on the highway, I'm cool with it, man. Let's watch some videos, movies. Hey, we're bored, right? But when we're on the trail and it's scenic and it's beautiful, shut it down. With Noah and Lily, when we're traveling, we don't sit on our screens, or they don't sit on their screens. We listen to audiobooks, and we can do that with them. Ben and Noah and Ben and Lily, we can do audiobooks, but Ben's not super interested. Evelyn, flat out mutiny. I mean, if we're listening to an audiobook, she's completely going to revolt. And so when I go on trips with Evelyn, typically we'll just watch movies. I'll have the iPad set up, they'll watch movies. I got it piped into the stereo there. If you have suggestions for younger kids on how to keep them occupied in the car without them staring at a screen, hey man, let me have it. The other thing is, if we're on a trail that's super scenic, it's something that So Georgia Traverse and any of the southeastern stuff, like there's really not a lot to look at. You're looking out the window and you like literally see like bushes and trees. Sometimes it's scenic, and when it's scenic and beautiful, like I'm telling everybody, hey, shut it down and look out the window. You gotta see this right now. And the other thing is we're gonna get out and we're gonna explore. We're gonna stop, we're gonna get out and we're gonna explore. We're gonna go walk down a trail, we're gonna see things. And that's something that I'm not that good at, and sometimes I have to remind myself, hey, stop, get out and look. But it's important for the kids not only to get out and exercise, but to get out and like see things that are different. Last weekend at the one campsite that we were at, up on the Rock Ledge at Talladega National Forest, we went down this trail, and there was like this beautiful
I could use this.
In a perfect world, we're not going to be sitting there looking at our screens, but sometimes it's just the way it works out. I do like to listen to audiobooks. I let them play video games and watch some movies. It's all about compromise. If we're in a scenic area, we're going to look around, stuff like that. I mean, let's not forget about what this is all about. For me, I really love exploring. I have this, like, I think about it all the time. It's crazy. I think about like exploration, like going out and seeing things I've never seen before and doing things I've never done before, and giving these experiences to my kids, giving them the ability to be able to see things that they've never seen before, things that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. I know camping with kids can be nerve-wracking. It can be something that it makes it pretty easy to put things off. But I'm telling you now, don't put it off. Get out there, explore, do it now, figure it out. And as you do it, and as you do it more, and as you do it again and again, you're gonna figure out what works. I've kind of shared a little bit about what works for us, and maybe that gives you some tips and ideas, but the reality is that you're not gonna know what works for you unless you try something, and then you come back and you think about it, and then you try it again differently and try and improve and get better. And I can tell you this. Let me give you an analogy. You know how when you go outside and it's like 30 degrees outside, when you first go out, it's like really, really cold. I mean, like really cold. And you're like, I don't even know how I'm gonna be able to handle being outside. And then like after like a half hour of being outside, you're like, it doesn't really feel like cold anymore. I mean, it feels cold, but I don't feel like I'm about to freeze my fingers off. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of used to it. It's kind of the same thing with camping and camping with kids. As you do things and as you do it more and you do it more often, you do it regularly, you kind of start figuring things out. You kind of start getting your groove. You kind of start getting your experience. You kind of start getting used to it. You know what I mean? That's kind of what this is about. It might be difficult the first time or two or three, but as you do it and as you keep doing it, it will get easier. And I promise you, it will become rewarding if it's not right away. Kids have this insatiable desire for exploration, this incredible capacity to get out there and try new things, and they're so fearless. You know what I mean? Like they have no issue just getting in there and diving in and just trying it out, and they want to get out there. They don't care about getting dirty. They just want to play. And I think we can learn a lot from that. And I think as you get comfortable camping with your kids, you're going to give them these unforgettable experiences that they'll take with them the rest of their lives. And if you make videos, and I highly encourage you to do so, whether you're doing what we're doing or not, you can look back on these videos and pictures and experiences and remember. And I mean, I literally like almost started crying last night because I was just thinking about our trip that we did this past weekend, and I was just thinking about it. You know what I mean? And it just like, I don't know, it'd make me sad. I'm just about to start crying now, but I'm not gonna cry. You gotta create unforgettable experiences with your kids. You gotta do it. It's your job as a parent. I challenge you to get out there and play with your kids. I challenge you to get out there and explore with your kids and have fun. I don't know, guys, that's all I got for today. I hope you enjoyed this movie. If you enjoyed this movie, hit the like button, make sure you subscribe, share it with your friends, comment below if you have any feedback, suggestions. If you have tips for how you camp with your kids, experiences that you had growing up with your parents, camping, like whatever. And we'll see you next time.